Hey, welcome to the shop. Today we're going to talk about spring tension on a slip joint folder. The spring, right, is just a piece of steel, and it's made out of the same steel as the blade. It's just tempered differently to give it a spring temper so that it will be flexible and return. Flex and come back. So that's the spring. On a previous video that I did called Anatomy of a Slip Joint Folder, talking about the rise and fall, one of the viewers, Woody Turner, asked the key question: how do you pre-tension the spring? And if you're restoring an old pocket knife, it'll be, how do you get the third pin in there when, if the spring's under tension? So let me break that down into two parts. Let me tell you how it's made, and that'll explain to you what to do. On your scales here, you see that you've got three holes. The pivot, where the blade goes, the center pin, right? Or you can think of it as the hinge pin for the spring. And then this one, that's the key. This hole is everything. This hole is what is going to put this spring into tension. And for anybody who's just watching this video because they're curious about knives, they're not a knife maker, let me explain what's going on here. A slip joint folder, what keeps this blade in place is the spring pushing down on it. Let me put that back. Get my fat fingers to work. Is the spring pushing down on it. So when you open this knife, you don't want it to be all sloppy, right? So you need this spring to push down. When I use my thumb, you see how that works? It pushes down on it. So to get this part to push down, because of this pivot pin, right, I can make this part push up. Let me get the blade out of here. It keeps falling through my bench block here. Okay, see how that works? Like a little seesaw there. If I want to get my blade to stay in place, I need to flex this spring. And I'm going to do it by pushing up here. And then you're going to ask, okay, well, how do I do that? This is the trick if you're ever making a slip joint. If you notice, right here, you can't tell what's going on because all the holes are already there. So let's go back a couple steps to the building process. This is two liners. It's two pieces of 50 thousandths thick 3/16 stainless. And if you notice, the pivot pin is drilled, this pin is drilled, but what's missing? The third hole is missing. And the reason why that's missing is because you don't know where it's going to go yet. So during the build process, let's assume that this has been cut out, and now we're going to go set the spring tension. What I'm going to do, now keep in mind, right now this hole would not be there. That would just be, right now, just a blank piece of steel. I've already got all this worked out, and if you want to see how that geometry works out, please go back and watch that video on Anatomy of a Slip Joint. The spring does have two holes in it, and we're going to use this hole as our drill guide. So we're going to push this into place with some, I like to use layout blue, but you don't have to use it. But with layout blue, then I take a scribe and I follow that line. I trace that line. Once I've traced that line, I can take my blade out of here because we actually need this to pivot some. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this up, right? From my line, I'm going to bring it up about 1/2 to 2/3 the thickness of this pin. So if this is a 90 thousandths pin, pin stock, I come up about 60 thousandths. I come up from my line 60 thousandths, I clamp this down, and I drill that hole. Now what you have are 3 holes, right? But your third pin's not going to go in because this is offset, right? So now let's get back to Woody Turner's question. I want to put this knife together, except I can't figure out what to do because when I put the blade in, and then I put the spring in, guess what? This pin won't go in the hole because they're offset. So what are we going to do about it? What we're going to do about it is this. Can you see that? I've taken a pin and I have ground a taper onto the tip so that it's pointy. We're going to move this down to the end because we want to flex the spring in the middle. We're going to take this pointy one after I put this on. Because this is pointy and that hole is only half a hole offset, the point will go down through there and will get into the hole. The point will find the hole. And then as we tap it into place, the thickness of that pin pushes that spring where it's supposed to be. And now we have a slip joint that works. Offset this hole, but when you go to assemble it, use this hole to put your sharp pin through so that you've got the whole length of that spring to flex. If you put the fixed pin in here and try to flex here, you've got to flex just half the spring and it's going to be twice as hard. So now that spring is touching here, it's touching here, we drive the pin through and it lines everything up. So there you go. There's slip joint tension in a nutshell. Thanks for watching.